This lesson is on the general form for the equation of a line. This will be a relatively quick lesson, as the main lesson I'd like you to look at for equations of a line is the slope-intercept form for the equation of a line. And that will be referred to in this lesson. There's only a few slides here. So the general form for the equation of a line is ax plus by plus c equals 0, where a is a whole number, b and c are integers. So a being a whole number, that means it has to be positive, and then b and c are going to be positive or negative, or 0, of course. Any of them can be 0, including a. X is the independent variable, graphed on the x-axis, and as usual y is the dependent value. Since it's dependent on x, y is graphed on the y-axis. Slope-intercept form is the easiest form to work with, as simply by looking at the equation you know the slope and the y-intercept. Then you can graph it very quickly. The easiest way to deal with a line in general form is to rewrite it in slope-intercept form. For example, rewrite 4x plus 2y minus 6 equals 0 into slope-intercept form. So that's what we're starting out with in general form. And so how do we write this in slope-intercept form? We just need to isolate y. So let's use a bit of algebra here. Let's move our our 4x from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. So subtract 4x from both sides. And then add 6 to both sides to get rid of that negative 6 on the left-hand side. And then finally, we still have a 2 attached to the y there, so we divide both sides by 2. And you divide the entirety of the right-hand side by 2, which means you divide each term on that side by the 2. We divided by 2 on the left-hand side here, and it canceled. That's why we did that. So now we're left with just a y on the left-hand side, good. And just a bit of simplifying of our fractions on the right-hand side. Negative 4 over 2 is just a negative 2, and 6 divided by 2 is just a 3. So now we're done. We've written this equation that was in general form in slope-intercept form, and we could graph this very quickly now. Please refer to the slope-intercept form lesson if you forget how to graph this quickly. I will show you at least one example in this short lesson though. So graph 2x plus 3y minus 8 equals 0. This equation of a line is given in general form. Let's change it into slope-intercept form so we can graph it quickly. So let's isolate y, get y by itself on one side. So we'll bring the 3x over first, and then we'll bring the 8 over. So we subtracted 3x from both sides to get 3x over here. We added 8 to both sides, and we got plus 8 on the right-hand side. And note, I moved the 3x over first because I'm just forming the mx plus b form on the right-hand side. So instead of having 8 minus 3x here, now I already have negative 3x plus 8. But of course, you can rearrange this anytime you want on the right-hand side. And then finally, we need to get rid of that 2. We need y by itself, so divide both sides of the equation by 2. So we got rid of it on the left-hand side. And we have negative 3 over 2x on the right-hand side, plus 8 divided by 2. And of course, 8 over 2 is just a 4. So now we have it in slope-intercept form. So we were asked to graph this equation. This is still the same equation. We just did some algebra manipulation to isolate y to get it into a different form to make it easy to graph. But if we graph this, we'll still be graphing this. They're the exact same equation. So, real quick here, we have 4, the y-intercept. We know that's our starting point. Given our slope now of negative 3 over 2, negative 3 is our rise, which is down 3 because it's negative, and our run is 2, so over to the right 2. Now we've started forming our line, and then we can just complete our line. And that's actually the end of that lesson. I went pretty quick there because you guys should know how to do this graphing from slope-intercept form from that lesson. I gave quite a few examples in that lesson. So this lesson is done.